All right, so we're back and ready for another deep dive. This time, we're digging into some more intel from our favorite due diligence detective, the ever-elusive Allan Smithee.
The man's a legend, a true master of uncovering what someone doesn't want found.
Right. And for those new to the show, Allan Smithee. It's a pen name, of course. Got to keep a low profile in that line of work. This time, he shared his personal playbook on how to interview sources effectively.
This is good stuff. We're talking market research, competitive analysis, due diligence, you name it. It's like he's giving us the keys to the kingdom.
It's extensive, that's for sure. Over 5 pages, 35 points, we'll be focusing on the first 11 in this deep dive. All about that initial contact phase.
Laying the groundwork, so to speak. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and he starts with a point that seems obvious, but it's easy to forget. People love to talk, especially when they feel like they're the expert in the room.
Oh, absolutely. It's like that old saying, everyone's a professor in their own field.
Right. It reminds me of this one time I was trying to bake sourdough bread. Complete disaster, by the way.
Sourdough's tricky. What happened?
Well, everything that could go wrong did. So naturally, I called my friend Sarah. She's a baker, practically breathes flour and yeast.
I feel ya. I've been there.
And you know what? She spent an hour on the phone with me, dissecting every single mistake I'd made. She was practically buzzing with the chance to share her knowledge.
It's true. People genuinely enjoy helping others, especially when it allows them to showcase their expertise. And that's precisely what Smithee highlights in his notes.
It's like you're setting the stage for them to shine, subtly guiding them towards the information you need.
Exactly. He even gives this great example. Instead of directly asking, "Are you worried about this new competitor?" which might make someone clam up, you could say something like, "I've heard amazing things about your company's innovative marketing approach. How do you think it stacks up against competitors' name strategy?"
Oh, that's good. You're framing it as a compliment, piquing their interest, and subtly inviting a comparison.
Exactly. And because you framed it positively, they're much more likely to open up. It plays on that natural desire to be seen as knowledgeable and insightful.
Like you're playing a game of intellectual chess, guiding the conversation without being confrontational.
Precisely. Subtlety is key here.
And speaking of strategy, Smithee isn't one for sticking to a rigid script, is he?
Not at all. He emphasizes the importance of flexibility and serendipity.
Point number 8, right. Listen and be open to serendipity. Don't be so tied to a checklist. Follow up on a whiff of something that smells bad or good.
It's so important. Sometimes the most valuable information comes from those unexpected turns in the conversation. You might go in with one objective in mind, and then, bam, you stumble upon a goldmine of insights you hadn't even considered.
It's like that saying, the best discoveries are often the ones you weren't looking for.
Absolutely. It's about being adaptable, being willing to deviate from the plan if you sense an opportunity.
But even with the best intentions, I imagine it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a promising lead.
Oh, for sure. And that's why Smithee stresses the importance of caution, especially in those early stages.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Right?
Exactly. He even warns that the first person you talk to could be dead wrong because they were told something wrong, didn't understand, or are greatly biased.
So it's all about gathering multiple perspectives, corroborating information, and being wary of those initial impressions.
Precisely. Think of it like building a house. You wouldn't rely on just one brick, would you? You need a solid foundation built on multiple sources and viewpoints.
It's about building a comprehensive picture, not just accepting the first version of events you hear, which actually reminds me of this quote from Roger Lowenstein that Smithee includes in his notes. It really struck a chord with me.
Oh, I love Lowenstein. What's the quote?
All right, so he says, experts are courageous or impressionable, independent or conventional, in the same degrees as other two-legged beasts.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Go on.
He continues, and all of an expert's brains and training will not count for much if, at the crucial moment, he relies on someone else's brains instead of his own.
Ooh, that's a powerful statement.
Right. It's a reminder that we shouldn't blindly trust anyone's opinion, even if they seem like an authority.
Absolutely. And this ties directly into Smithee's emphasis on critical thinking and independent verification.
It's like that classic magician's trick misdirection.
I see where you're going with this.
We get so focused on the expert's credentials, their title, their reputation, that we forget to critically evaluate what they're actually saying. We get blinded by the glitter.
It's easy to fall into that trap. We automatically assume that someone with expertise must be right.
But as Smithee reminds us, even experts are human. They have biases, they make mistakes, and their judgment can be clouded by their own experiences.
We'll be back in a moment with more from Allan Smithee's playbook. Don't go away.
We're back with more from Allan Smithee's playbook on effective interviewing. And trust me, this next part is where it gets really interesting.
Oh, I'm booked. Lay it on us. So remember how we were talking about experts and their potential blind spots?
Yeah, even the best of them can be influenced by their own experiences and biases.
Exactly. And that's where point number 12 comes into play. Smithee cautions. Be careful what goes in your head unprocessed. Once it's in there, it's hard to get out. He's talking about the danger of cognitive biases.
Cognitive biases, those sneaky little mental shortcuts that can trip us up.
The very same. We all have them, whether we're aware of them or not.
Oh, tell me about it. I'm a walking example of confirmation bias. I swear I could find an article to support practically any opinion I have, no matter how outlandish. But Smithee calls out some other sneaky biases that can cloud our judgment, right?
Absolutely. He specifically mentions the availability principle, which is our tendency to overestimate the likelihood of something happening based on how easily we can recall a similar event.
Oh, right. It's like after you watch a shark attack movie, you're convinced you'll get eaten alive if you even dip your toe in the ocean.
Exactly. Or in a business context, if a competitor recently had a major product launch failure, you might overestimate the chances of your own company experiencing something similar, even if the circumstances are totally different.
It's like our brains latch on to those vivid, emotionally charged examples, even if they're not statistically representative. So how do we combat these biases? Besides, becoming perfectly rational beings overnight, which would be lovely, but not exactly realistic.
Well, Smithee has a few practical suggestions. One is to actively seek out diverse perspectives. Don't just talk to people who you think will agree with you. Make an effort to get insights from sources with different backgrounds, experiences, and viewpoints.
It's like that saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You need that intellectual friction to spark new ideas and avoid those echo chambers. Okay, this next part I love. Smithee gets into some real spy thriller territory with this technique called elicitation.
It does sound a little cloak and dagger, doesn't it?
It does. What exactly is elicitation?
Essentially, it's the art of extracting information without directly asking for it. It's about guiding the conversation in a way that encourages the other person to volunteer information without feeling pressured or interrogated.
Okay, I'm all ears. How do you do that without, being a master manipulator?
Well, Smithee gives this example of what he calls swallowed questions. You make a statement and then tack on a quick, shouldn't it or wasn't it at the end.
Like, their marketing campaign seems to be missing the mark, wouldn't you say?
Exactly. It's subtle, but it invites a response without directly asking a question. It's almost like you're thinking out loud and inviting the other person to share their thoughts. And then there's the oblique reference, where you bring up a related topic or anecdote to subtly nudge the source towards a specific revelation.
Ooh, that does sound a bit sneaky.
It can be, but remember, the goal isn't to trick anyone. It's about creating a safe and comfortable environment where the other person feels comfortable sharing information. And sometimes a less direct approach can be more effective, especially if the person is reluctant to divulge sensitive information.
It's like you're easing them into the conversation rather than hitting them over the head with a list of questions.
Right. And that leads us to point number 13, which emphasizes the importance of making it a two-way conversation.
No one likes to feel like they're being interrogated.
Exactly. Instead of just peppering the other person with questions, share something about yourself, your experiences, or even an anecdote that relates to the topic at hand.
So, vulnerability is key.
It can be a powerful tool for building rapport. By showing a bit of yourself, you create a more human connection and encourage the other person to reciprocate.
It's like that saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You have to show them that you're genuinely interested in what they have to say. And that sometimes means being willing to admit that you don't have all the answers. Which brings us to this intriguing point. Number 16. Play dumb, not doubtful.
This is one of my favorite tactics, though it can feel a little counterintuitive at first.
It does. Wouldn't playing dumb make someone less likely to take you seriously?
Not necessarily. Remember, most people enjoy feeling helpful and knowledgeable. By feigning ignorance, you give them the opportunity to correct you, to show off their expertise. And that's when they're most likely to reveal valuable insights that they might not have shared otherwise.
It's like you're disarming them with a bit of self-deprecation. But what if they say something that contradicts what you've already heard from other sources?
That's a great question. And Smithee has some really insightful advice for navigating those situations. He says, if they say something that doesn't jive with what we heard read, tell them politely what you heard read.
So you address it head on, but with tact.
Precisely. It's not about accusing them of lying or being misinformed, but about giving them the opportunity to clarify their thinking or provide additional context. It could be that they have access to different information or that they're interpreting the situation from a different perspective.
It's like you're holding up a mirror, giving them a chance to see their own inconsistencies. And that can lead to a deeper understanding of the situation, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's all about being adaptable, being willing to adjust your approach based on the person and the situation. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to interviewing.
It's more about being a skilled conversationalist than sticking to a rigid script. You have to read the room, so to speak, and adjust your tactics accordingly.
Exactly. And that's what makes Smithee's approach so effective. He understands that gathering intelligence is as much about understanding human nature as it is about collecting data.
It's about connecting with people on a human level, building rapport, and creating an environment of trust and mutual respect, which honestly are valuable skills in any context, not just in the high-stakes world of due diligence.
I couldn't agree more. These techniques can be applied to everything from negotiating a business deal to navigating a difficult conversation with a colleague or a loved one. It's all about communication, empathy, and being present in the moment.
This deep dive into Allan Smithee's playbook has been eye-opening, to say the least. We've learned about the importance of recognizing our own biases, the power of strategic questioning, and the subtle art of elicitation. We've only scratched the surface of his 35 points, but I feel like we've been given a masterclass in the art of information gathering.
It's amazing how much valuable insight can be gleaned from a single source. But what's even more remarkable is how these techniques can be applied to so many different aspects of our lives.
It's about becoming a more astute observer of human behavior, not just in these formal interview settings, but in all of our interactions.
Absolutely. It's about understanding what motivates people, what makes them tick, and what might be holding them back from sharing what they really know.
It's like we've been given a secret decoder ring for human interaction.
And the best part is, the more we use it, the better we get at deciphering those subtle cues and uncovering those hidden gems of information.
This was just a taste of Smithee's wisdom. We'll definitely have to delve deeper into his playbook in a future episode. Until then, happy investigating.